Hi, everyone. So picking up where we left off, I'm now going to take you through the detail of how to capture the data and what each column means. Column A is a count column. You will enter a 1 in the count column for every incidence of study. There are some pivot tables here used to populate the Bursary Forums reporting tool, as well as other areas in the model, which require that this count column be populated for every incidence of study. Column B is an incidence number. So this is just a continuous numbering of each incidence, 1 through to final number of incidences you have recorded on the tool. The unique person number differs from the incidence number in that where a person, such as person 2, completes 2 incidences of study, an undergrad and a postgrad, the person number should be the same in this column. Bearing in mind that this is based on the bursary definitions, the bursary forum definitions, that an incidence of study involves a registration to outcome. So anywhere where that complete cycle is reached, it is considered a separate incidence of study. If, however, somebody is doing a Bachelor of Business Science, which may include an honors degree, but which is done all through a single registration to completion, that would not be 2 incidences. That would not include a separate incidence for the honors year. The next column D is ultimate or latest registration. Ultimate or latest registration is a column which you will update at the end of a year. It is a 1 if this is the latest incidence of study for that person. So at the time when person 2 went on to complete an honors, the prior capturing of her undergraduate incidence would be changed to a 0, and the latest incidence would be made a 1. This will be very useful for you later on when you want to look at your student body at ultimate registrations. So ultimately, how many people achieved an NQF7 or NQ8 level, for example. Name, surname, gender, ethnicity, date of birth, country of origin, all of these things you can capture. And this is the one place where you can actually add other columns should you wish to capture information specific to your program. Then we get onto the academic columns. This is where you capture details about the individual's incidence of study. The award year is the year that they were awarded the bursary funding. The start year is their academic start. For some candidates, it may be the same, whereas for others, they may achieve the bursary award already well into their study term. The NQF level needs to be populated. It is a good idea to check that you have this correct, as sometimes there are slight discrepancies in definition between institutions. The institution field has been pre-populated with a drop-down list. This drop-down list matches the list in Penny's reporting documents, so it is taken to be the Bursary Forum's standard coding of higher education institutions. Qualification and specialization major I have left as open text. I must encourage here that if you are going to term it Bachelor of Art, you should always write it as Bachelor of Art, and don't slip into the habit of some being captured as Bachelor of Arts and some as BA. This will only create issues later on when you want to chart the data to classifiable groups. Whatever syntax you use here, just make sure that you stick to it. Specialization major is open text also for you to give you the freedom and space where these things are defined differently between organizations, or majors are constructed slightly differently. And then faculty, once again, is created using a drop-down list using the forum's defined list of faculties. So therefore, you have institution and faculty keeping you relatively consistent for comparability across other stakeholders in the sector. Next, we move on to the outcomes data. First of all, the negative outcome of a termination or withdrawal. If a bursary is terminated, you will capture a 1 in the column to record the termination. You will then want to include a year of termination and a reason for termination. You are encouraged to recall the bursary forum's breakdown of reasons for termination, and as far as possible, try and stick to that formulation. Then we have the positive outcomes or graduation. Now, when you capture a graduation, you will always want to capture it in the grad year column. Please note that this is not intended to be an anticipated graduation date. You only capture this once the candidate has in fact graduated and the outcome has been achieved. You will capture their graduation year in column AD, but you will also want to capture it in the respective NQF column. You'll want to capture the prescribed minimum time. Now, it is good to bear in mind that this is the prescribed minimum time of the degree. If a candidate is doing an extended or formal program, so for example, if they've registered for an extended Bachelor of Nursing degree, the Bachelor of Nursing degree standard is 4 years, and you add the 1 year for the extended program there. So in as far as you can, prescribed minimum time must be in the general case of that degree type. And if they're doing an extended program, you add a 1 in this column. The model is built that in the event that the candidate is doing an extended or formal extended program or foundational year, then their N is counted as being the sum of these two columns. If, however, the degree is extended for discretionary purposes, or so for example, if somebody's never failed a year, but perhaps just struggled a little bit with the adjustment, and it is acceptable to the bursary to fully fund them, but they will take an extra year, or if a candidate, for example, changed and will take an extra year because of that, these two columns are used to contextualize your N+1 results, so that of your N+1 results, you can explain that's such and such a percentage of them were students who had changed or that had been extended for at your discretion. These are not counted and summed up to include as N. If these are here, the candidate is likely to have completed an N+1, will have completed an N+1, and will be counted as such, and just having this will enable you to have that little bit of explanation. This column here will give you the opportunity to capture any notes for these special conditions, which may have been the case. Finally, we move on to the status columns. Now, the status columns, basically, a bursar can be any one of 3 things. They can be current, they can be graduated, or they can be terminated. You may want to change this to include other statuses you may have, such as a student being suspended from funding with the possibility for reconsideration. But bearing in mind that current, specifically formatted in this way, with an uppercase C and the rest of the word following, is required for the coding of the sheet, as is graduated written this way and terminated written this way. So effectively, any other statuses you wish to add, you may need to request a bespoke version of the tool with those changes built into the coding. For consistency, it would be better to stick to what is contained in here. Now, when you are loading the status of a student, you must bear in mind that they will only be marked current from the date that they were awarded the bursary. So even if a student's academic start year was long before, you will only start marking them as current from the time that they were awarded the degree. You will also, once they achieve an outcome, want to click and drag that outcome right up to the current year in order for the model to work. This column here counts the number of years that the student was funded. And this is useful for the reporting that is required by the bursary forum as per Ping's request. Finally, you get your pass rate columns over here. Now, it's worth mentioning that as a general rule, anything on the sheet that is blue is captured once and generally up front at the start of an incident. Anything that is purple may require an update, either when an outcome is reached or perhaps when certain circumstances may occur, or at the end of the year when it can be understood whether a candidate has passed or failed. So at the end of each year, you will want to visit these pass rate columns. Now, unlike the status columns, where you will only capture from the date that the candidate was awarded, the pass rate columns, you'll really want to record that data from the beginning of their academic study. So it's always good to check that these records will begin to line up with the start date of the degree captured here, while the award year will be where the status capturing begins. That is basically the detail of how you capture the tool, how you capture data into the tool. In my third video, I'm going to take you through how to use pivot tables to populate the reporting tools as required by Penny and the Bursary Forum. Thanks very much.